In May of 2026, Meta aggressively wiped out 8,000 jobs in a single week. But if you think getting fired by Mark Zuckerberg was the worst thing that could happen to you that month, you are completely wrong. Because what Meta did to the 7,000 employees who actually survived the cuts is infinitely darker. They did not fire them, they drafted them. And the nightmare those surviving employees were forced into is a terrifying preview of exactly what is coming for the rest of the corporate world. To understand how unprecedented this was, you have to look at the math. Meta was not a struggling company trimming the fat to survive. They had just posted 24% revenue growth and nearly $23 billion in quarterly profit. They were drowning in cash. But right after the layoffs, Meta's chief people officer initiated a massive, non-negotiable reassignment protocol. Roughly 7,000 highly skilled engineers, people who had spent years building complex ranking systems and advertising models, were suddenly ripped from their teams. They were dropped into brand new divisions with incredibly vague names like Agent Transformation Accelerator. But the reality of the job was soul-crushing. Nearly all of them were assigned to do manual AI data labeling. They were forced to sit at their desks, read chatbot responses, and grade them by hand, 8 hours a day. There was no vote, there was no opt-out. You either took the demotion to human spell checker or you quit. The reassigned staff immediately started calling themselves draftees because they were conscripted into a war they never signed up for. But grading AI chatbots was just the beginning of the psychological torture. Right as these thousands of engineers were forced into data labeling, Meta quietly rolled out a brand new internal tracking tool. It was designed to capture employee keystrokes. Meta claimed it was just meant to train their AI agents on how staff actually work. But think about what that actually means for the person sitting at the keyboard. You are an engineer. You have just been demoted to grading AI outputs. And while you do it, your employer is tracking every single click and keystroke you make explicitly to teach an AI how to mimic your workflow. You are quite literally being forced to train your own permanent replacement. When employees complained, Meta's chief technology officer confirmed there was absolutely no option to opt out of the surveillance. One employee leaked a description of the program to the BBC. They summarized the entire initiative in a single word: dystopian. But here is the detail that actively pushed the company to the brink of a civil war. Just days before announcing these brutal layoffs and forcing 7,000 people into an AI sweatshop, Meta filed a very quiet piece of financial paperwork. They unlocked massive new stock options for 3 top executives. If the company hits a specific valuation by 2031, powered largely by this aggressive AI pivot, those 3 executives will walk away with up to $921 million each. Inside Meta, employees use an anonymous app called Blind to talk to each other. You can actually track the collapse of the company's culture in real time. In 2024, only about 20% of the posts about Meta's AI strategy were negative. By late 2025, that number violently spiked to 83%. It was a total internal meltdown. In a single month, over 500 posts flooded the board, ripping the leadership apart. One viral post simply read, "Meta is dead and depressing." Leadership tried to ignore it, but they quickly realized they were facing the absolute worst morale crisis in 20 years. They had essentially radicalized their own workforce. So the $200 billion empire did something it almost never does. It surrendered. Within weeks, the pressure became so toxic that Mark Zuckerberg had to publicly step forward, admit the company had made massive mistakes, and reverse the entire protocol. He pledged 0 company-wide layoffs for the rest of 2026. Every single draftee was given the immediate choice to leave the AI task force with preferential placement elsewhere in the company. The executives tried to quietly conscript a highly skilled army to build their billion-dollar AI dreams, but they forgot one critical rule of the tech industry. You cannot build the future if the people coding it actively hate you. And that's it for this video. Like, subscribe, and see you on the next one.